Liam, thanks for your time. Carrow Road is one, so Colney, so it's a little bit different. But start, as always, fitness-wise, can I just get an update from you from Marcelino Nunes? Obviously, the situation, had to go off second half. Pompey, what's that look like in terms of the days since?
Yeah, a bit of swelling. He obviously tried to continue, but was unable to. We've scanned it. We've had a look at it. It's a matter of weeks, not months, which is a good news. To be fair, I think in terms of it could have been a lot worse than it is. So, watched it back on the video. Actually, it's a nasty one in terms of how he rolls over on it with contact as well. So, yeah, really disappointing. I thought it was excellent first half at Portsmouth, as well as the game on the Tuesday at Watford. So disappointing because he'd got himself obviously into the team, was in a good spot. But yeah, fortunately we've got the international break as well, so it's going to be a few weeks.
Just to clarify, I mean, as you say, rolled down. It was the ankle, looked like the ankle area.
Yeah, it was the ankle. Yeah.
I guess the follow up to that. I mean, you've mentioned weeks rather than months, but as you were asked about Forson last week, does that change anything in terms of the end of this window and looking at what you've got in the building and knowing that you've got two maybe attacking players missing now?
No, I don't think so. In terms of where Nacho was playing anyway, but also I think in terms of with other bodies coming back. Kenny, we've seen bits of Kenny in training this week as well, so he's obviously still got a lot of work to do because of obviously the off season and then missing most of the pre-season. But yeah, when you look at it, I think we've got the depth, we've got the options. That's not an issue.
And talking of Kenny, I mean, he did a little bit of media yesterday, did a signing session there, and intimated he feels it's going well to recover in the rehab and maybe slightly ahead of schedule. But from what you've said there, it's probably unrealistic we'll see him this side of the international break in terms of in contention.
Yeah, looks tight. I think it is. It's one of those. The actual, the ankle, the work he had done on's okay. It's more probably just the conditioning bit now. I think in terms of when you best part of probably 12 weeks with limited work, you have to be sensible when you look at the work the lads put in and what they've had to do to get to the stage they're at. It's one of those where we want to get him back as quickly as we can, but we also want to make sure we keep him back.
And just sort of to wrap up on the fitness, Mahovo and Gabe Forsyth, are they still on the right track, but maybe the other side of the break?
Yeah, expecting Lucian back training during the international break. So obviously that 2-week period, so hopefully we'll reintegrate him then. Gabe's a bit later than that, but progressing really well as well. So I think when I look at the work going on behind the scenes with the medical guys and with the performance staff, I think that doing a good job to reintegrate them and get them back up to speed. And then obviously be big additions for us as well. Obviously being able to see them, lads that I'm looking forward to working with and having back in the group. So yeah, they'll I'm sure at some point will probably feel like new signings as well.
Coming out of the Portsmouth game, the lads who were on duty that day. Nunes aside, any other fitness issues we might not be aware of moving into this weekend?
No, good.
And then just sort of full stop on Portsmouth. Really, you've had a chance to debrief it, I'm sure, in the heat of what was a very sort of as you said, draining game on Saturday. But is it how you felt at the time when you've had a chance with a bit of distance to debrief it? And what really pleased you? What elements coming out of that you maybe saw on the day, but really when you looked at it on the sort of the video and that you could accentuate a little bit?
Yeah, I think there's so many factors to reflect on. I think when you look at October onwards, their home form and the fact they're quite a settled side. So you take the context of that and how difficult Fratton Park is. I think you then look at the week we'd had and going into what was the second league game. When wanting to get off the mark with points, you add that into it. So many factors. I thought watching it back, I thought first half was really good control. Probably elements similar to Millwall first half. Some really good control with the ball, but some really good control without it. Obviously scored 2 excellent goals off set pieces, which we well worked on. So it's always pleasing to see the lads transfer some of the stuff done on the training pitch into game. And then second half, the most pleasing thing I think when you look at it, the togetherness, the spirit, the desire to defend the goal, the way we competed, the physicality I thought we showed on set pieces, especially defensively second half, and putting everything on the line to get 3 points, I thought was excellent. And of course, there's bits where we have to get better with the ball. I think we have to manage the game better by taking care of it and. Which is difficult naturally when you're ahead, teams are chasing. They're going to come out and be more front-footed and aggressive. So it's more how do we cope with that? But we're like I said, we're game 3 of the season for us in what's going to continually progress and improve and grow. So yeah, as much as I'd love everything to be and look perfect, we won't be there for a little while. But so many positive aspects that are there for us to build on.
And is that kind of, as you say, when you take a step back, while knowing there's a lot of work to do, but the pleasing element is a lot of the fundamentals you've got to build in, the behaviours and the cultures. You probably wouldn't say they're there now and we don't need to worry about that and move on to the next phase, but the fact that they look like, under stress testing like Watford and Portsmouth, those type of environments, they've come through, and it's almost, while we know there's a long way to travel on the road, you can see already the benefits of what you and the coaching team have done in these 7-8 weeks.
Yeah, and we have to keep pushing it. I think, we have to keep working at it. We have to keep refining and improving. And I think that's the second you think you've cracked anything, I think you're in trouble. So the foundations, I think, you look at some of the teams that did well in the league last year. I think, the starting points for a lot of them are being hard to beat without the ball. So we naturally got after that a little bit early on. And then, I think we'll keep working it. We'll keep revisiting it. But then the important bit is to keep chipping away of improving with the ball. I think when where we want to get the team to and what we want to do is be able to control games with the ball. But I think we have to be very clear when we can't do that. What does it look like? And then when you look at the lads and how hard they've worked, I think that's another pleasing thing. Their attitude to stick together, to work, to compete, and then to try and implement what we're asking them to do has been excellent. So that gives us the solid foundations to then improve. I think and keep chipping away, keep learning, keep getting better.
I wanted to ask you about specifically Jakov Medic, just because probably of the 3 games, that felt the game. He looked more comfortable. It looked like a game that his natural attributes were suited to. Is he a bit like Kovacevic? Is he on a similar journey? He's got to adapt to this league and tailor his game and taper his game and work out what he needs to be good at in this, and then try and work on those areas that maybe not natural come natural to him.
Yeah. I have to say, it makes me smile thinking back to how he was in the change room afterwards. I think a few of the boys, slightly new experience, slightly different experience, playing against, the Colby Bishop, someone that's so physical and able to, he's just smart. Colby in terms of how he bumps you, the little pulls that the referee doesn't see, even some of the things that were quite clear fouls that weren't given second half. Even for Matthias, took a couple of hits that. He's new for the lads. Games are refereed completely different in England to Denmark, to Germany, to to Portugal. To some of the leagues that we've taken lads out of. So, 100% it's a transition for them to understand what the Championship looks like. So, I thought they stood up really, really well together on that front. When you look at it, obviously Vlad had a terrific game, and I thought Jakov. For a taste of what that game's like, they're only going to be experiences that are going to benefit them and stand them in good stead for us moving forward.
And obviously Jakov, Harry in the middle, and then it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on Jose Cordoba, because 2 league games you've started in both of those games. Just what you like about the attributes in his game, because he's one, maybe we're talking about Medic and Kovacevic. He's last season was new coming from Bulgaria as he did, and fair to say, injuries aside, but he was in and out of the team. He didn't really stamp his authority on it. But as he'd come through that process, and you clearly like what you see because you've started in these 2 games, what is it that you particularly like and feel that he works quite well in that blend with those other 2 players?
I think you look at his physicality, how he covers ground. I think his aggression in duels is excellent. I think, of course, like a lot of the lads, he's aspects to work on, which we've spoken about, bits that we'll sit down, do video. He's doing a lot in terms of extras on the grass with the coaching staff at the minute. So there's loads for Jose to improve, but I think when you look at it, the balance he gives you with his left foot, I think, freeing him off a little bit and, telling him it's okay to play depth and play long, I think will actually help him as well. So I think he's had a solid start, and we'll keep pushing him to improve. And I think that is probably, for a lot of the lads, I think that it's a similar message at the minute. There's some really, really good aspects, but there's some big areas where we need to clean up, we need to tidy up, and some of that will come with understanding and relationships, and some of that I think will just come with the rhythm of games. So I think it's one of those where we've got 3 coming up. It's about progressively moving forward. Can't guarantee that, but we'll be pushing hard to and leave everything out there to make sure that we do.
But with him, just on him specifically, you talked about his physicality, his pace as well, that left-sided balance. He's only just turned 24. I mean, it feels like there's a lot of good ingredients to work with from a coaching perspective. And how high his ceiling is, do you feel?
I think I'd be able to tell you that in more time. I think when you're physically top end, physically outstanding, I think like with a lot of the lads, it's learning capacity as well. So if is how do they respond to the coaching? Are they able to transfer the information, the video work that we do, the work on the grass? Can they then transfer that into the game? That will determine ultimately like the level that they hit for me. So with quite a few of them, I think the ceiling is very, very high. It's then how do you it's okay hitting a really high level for a game. It's how do you do it across the full season, which is the challenge. How do you make sure, I've said it before, I think on a bad day you don't go below a 6 or a 7. And that's a bit, we have to find that consistency, which, will come.
Moving on to obviously this weekend and Borough, I know you'll stress it's you and what your team are about, but clearly they've had a very good start as early as it is, but probably don't place too much store. I think they're unbeaten 100%. Good win at Millwall last week. Another good challenge for you and your team. See how far you are on this road.
Yeah, definitely. And it doesn't surprise you a little bit. I think, again, elements of consistency to their team, right? So, not a huge turnover. I think, when you look at that, which helps. Obviously, Rob going in there as well. So there'll be certain tweaks in that, which I'm sure will look different to, how Michael had them set up. So we'll do our work on those. We'll make sure that we're prepared, we're planned, we're clear on what we expect them to do. But as you referenced there, it'll always come back to us and what we're trying to do. So I think it's take so many of the positives from the opening 3 games and then keep improving it. It's a different game. It'll look different. It'll feel different. But at the same point, some of the fundamentals that you need to do to get success won't change. So we have to make sure that we deliver those.
And obviously back here at Carrow Road, 2 very good away wins in terms of performance, but also how you dug those results out. So I guess you and the guys will be relishing, picking it up again from the Millwall display here and just driving it on again.
Definitely that. Delighted to get back here, and I thought the travelling fans at the weekend were outstanding. The noise was electric. So if we can, times that by 10, and after the 20,000+ here, if we can, get that noise, get that atmosphere across the whole stadium, we can create this, make a special place. And I think that in terms of the energy we want, we have to drive that. We have to get the fans excited. We have to make sure that we show that fighting spirit, that togetherness. And we're delighted to come back here and want to put on a performance at the weekend. I
think they've already got the Super Liam Manning chant going. So, but on a serious note, that connection. Say again.
Let's hope it stays.
Yeah, but as you said, I think more or less the first minute you walked in the door, to achieve what you want to achieve as a club, you need buy-in from everybody, don't you? Internally, externally, those fans, home and away, and that's the only way you're going to get to that end goal, isn't it?
Definitely, we want everybody pulling the same direction. Even afterwards, you could see, the time with the fans were outstanding. I thought at the weekend and at the end of the game, and you could see the appreciation from the players afterwards and the staff. That's how that for me, everybody would have felt the last 10 minutes, the emotional drain of, when the board goes up and seeing it and probably muttering a few expletives. I think that frustration, they're the bits, they're the memories that I'm talking about, us getting it over the line and doing it. And I think it's everybody pulling the same direction. And also being realistic, it is, we're going to have good times, we're going to have tough times. It's having elements of patience, is, still being demanding, it's not making excuses, it's, being real open and honest and reflecting on the good times and reflecting on the the not so good, and making sure that we keep pushing in the right direction. And that's, like I say, it's a lot more powerful when you've got everybody doing that together.
And irrespective of whether it was Middlesbrough, whoever here at Carrow Road this weekend, Carrow Road is the place, isn't it, where you're going to have to that atmosphere at the kick-off against Millwall. If you can generate that and the players respond, and each crowd and fans and players feed off each other, then this will be a very, very difficult place for opponents to come, and that's what you want as the head coach, isn't it?
Definitely, and with us on the pitch and with the fans off it, right, I think that's the challenge in it. Like I said, it's the lads giving the fans something to get behind, and also, and there'll be instances where we might, need the fans to lift us and give us that drive as well. So I think that's the powerful bit. I think that's when you look at the biggest impact you can have, it's doing that. And I thought, the start here against Millwall, it didn't surprise me the lads started so well because of the atmosphere, the energy, the noise. Then, it's probably a different game if we go ahead and sustain it. I think it's making sure that, we turn up ready, prepared, to give absolutely everything for the club, and that that'll be the message to the lads.
Apologies, I've got to bowl a couple on the window as we tick down to the last 2 weeks, but it does feel externally there's not a lot of noise around, maybe in or out at the minute. I mean, is that as much as you can say, is that kind of feels where it is internally, that, you know, obviously you're alive to situations, you have to scenario plan, but as we sit here now, less than 2 weeks to the deadline, it doesn't feel like there's too much moving in or out.
There's not a lot happening at the moment, no. I think we're quite clear. I think we've spoken about bits previously, but yeah, there's nothing imminent. There's nothing close. That's probably an accurate way of summing it up.
Yeah. Can I just ask, because I haven't asked you about him, but it's stating the obvious, but George Long, you know, he wasn't really involved in pre-season, hasn't been involved in any of these games. Is that a situation maybe for all parties between now and the window that could end up with maybe him moving on?
I think so, yeah. I think we've been quite clear and had those chats behind the scenes with George. I think in terms of, yeah, you know, and I'm sure the stage of his career he'll want to go and play as well. So I think it's exploring the opportunities and seeing what that looks like, and you know, and doing that. But at the same point, of course, you know, making sure that we look after him as well.
And just because there's been one or two links, and that's obviously nothing you can control, but you know, around Kellen, you know, a couple of Premier League clubs he's been mentioned with, putting that to one side, but there's a player, the club obviously this time last year tied him down to a new longer term deal. You've spoken already, you know, you like a lot of his attributes. You probably felt he was a little bit unfortunate after his Watford performance not to sort of retain his place, but irrespective of that noise, there's a young player you quite like and you could feel could be part of what you're trying to build in.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I think we had the chat when I was on the way here. We were talking on the phone. I think the big thing for me, when I look at it, is that it's a really tough decision, which is what I want. I think it shows the level we've got, the competition. I think, you know, if you've got a real clear starter and a real clear backup, I think, you know, when you have to make a change, there's a difference in levels. Whereas for me, I think Callum was excellent on Tuesday. Jack's done extremely well as well. I think, you know, that not just at right back, but, you know, at left back as well. And in other areas of the pitch, I think we've got really good options, really good depth, really good competition. And Kellen's definitely that. Kellen, especially what we ask, you know, when you look at the physical demands in how we play the position, for Kellen and Jack, I think, you know, it's one of those where we are going to have to in-game change, as you've seen has happened a few times, but also game to game. You know, it's the start of the season's probably a little bit more forgiving, I think, with the programme, with the international breaks. But when, you know, I know full well when we get into end of October, November, and the games are coming thick and fast, changes become hugely important as well. So the fact that we've got, you know, Jack and Kellen at that level, for me means we can, you know, change and sustain the level.
Not Kellen per se, but young players generally. I'm just interested in terms of, as a coach, do you, because especially this time of year, in the world we live in now, social media, it's very hard to insulate yourself. There's always people around you who want to tell you this, that, the other has been linked with you. I mean, do you ever feel the need to speak to younger players about that element of their craft and tell them just to park it, focus on your football, and that will take care of itself?
Yeah, I'm probably oblivious to 95% of it because I'm not on there, so that's why I rely on Dan to update me and keep me posted with everything that's happening. And obviously, you know, I have numerous chats and, you know, staff that fill us in, and of course I need to know everything, so we get the information. But yeah, off the back of it, of course, part of a player's development is understanding how do you handle that situation, how do you handle the noise. I think and not just young players, I think for any players, right? I think, you know, there's some high-profile ones at the minute in terms of, you know, they're humans at the end of the day, so I think it's extremely difficult. Sometimes we forget that, and, you know, the noise, the pressures, the volume of people, you know, the impact it can have on people's lives. I think it's one of those where, of course, we'll, at the right time and in the right way, sit with lads and have conversations. And ultimately, for me, it will always come down to one thing, which is how you deliver on the pitch and how you want to be defined as a person. What values do you want to live? How you brought up, those types of things, which for me are really, really important. So, yeah, we'll have those chats behind the scenes. And
just a final one, only because sort of the nature of it last week, it sort of overlapped. You know, the Brad Hills deal went through. I think when you sat down to do your press, it hadn't quite got to that point. And I didn't ask you about him on Portsmouth. Was that just one? It just made sense for all parties. He's done some media since and said, look, he wanted regular games. I think that was obvious. You couldn't really guarantee him at this stage. So ultimately, it's a good deal for all parties. Is that how you would assess that? I think so, yeah. I do. I think in terms of when you look at it, he obviously had a decent season. And with Stockport, and I think in terms of then coming back in, pushing, obviously had a good opportunity to look at him. Can't speak highly enough of him as a person, as a character, his desire to defend, and some attributes that will stand him in good stead going forward. But there's also that element where you look at it and is he ready to have impact here now? It wasn't quite there for me at the moment. Might be in the future, but I think we're at the moment. It made sense in terms of. Good business for the club, good for Brad, and it's one of those where we wish him all the best, and both parties move forward. Excellent. Good luck Saturday. Thank you.